The recent shootings in Uvalde, Buffalo, and Tulsa all happen in places that experts call soft targets, areas without a lot of security. Some lawmakers have suggested fortifying or reconfiguring schools and other soft targets to offer better protection. The idea is far more complex than it may seem. Tung Yin joins me now for more on this. He is a professor of law at Lewis and Clark Law School. Tung, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. How
Of course. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. How practical is it to try and secure these areas where people are meant to go about their days without worrying about shooters?
I think the analogy that I use is like a balloon, those balloon animals. And if you squeeze air in one part of the balloon, it just goes to another part of the balloon. So one of the challenges of trying to protect the soft targets, if you want to call it that, is that there are so many of them. So let's say that we beef up security at supermarkets. Well, then that's going to leave other venues for which a determined shooter could simply move to. So unless we can secure all of these places, we're simply moving around, which might be the sort of tempting targets.
Tung, do you think it's a mistake to leave the responsibility for security to schools and churches and businesses?
Well, I mean, partly there's the cost issue. If you were to think about hiring security, either the government does that in the form of police, which is what our taxes pay for, or it's incumbent upon the businesses and individuals to pay for their own security, which of course is going to raise questions of equity. The more affluent businesses or neighborhoods would be better able to protect themselves. And so again, we have problems of shifting where places are likely to be targeted. So I think that would be one problem. Certainly some responsibilities of having to be prepared to use lethal force. Again, we expect the police to have training in this. If we offload the responsibility onto individuals and businesses, individual workers have to take time out of their work schedule or personal lives to go to the shooting range and train on firearms to be better prepared and able to use force if necessary. I think these are some questions and problems of that particular approach.
Would you expect backlash to the idea that law enforcement isn't enough and now we have to be in charge of our own safety?
Yeah, I mean, I guess responses may vary. Some people may actually want to take control into their own hands. I think we saw with Uvalde that some of the parents became frustrated and wanted to go in themselves when they felt the police weren't responding fast enough. So some people may actually like the idea, but I think many others may feel it's not a responsibility that they want to take on.
Tung, if there's no way to really guarantee the safety of Americans in public spaces, how do we prevent these kinds of attacks?
I think sort of a zero policy is just not really feasible without taking all kinds of draconian responses that really would be probably incompatible with our notion of civil rights and civil liberties in this country. There's some amount of freedom that people have, and unfortunately, freedom can be abused as well as used properly. So what can we do to minimize these risks? Again, some sensible gun control laws may be one step. There's talk about these red flag laws to sort of at least try to proactively identify people who may present dangers. And again, we don't want to cross the line into the Minority Report sort of pre-crime convicting people before they've done anything wrong. But there may be signals that people are giving, warnings if they're posting on social media, threats of violence and so forth. That probably may be an indication that the authorities should at least step in and investigate. There may not be a basis for convicting at that point, but somebody could come in and at least interview or question the particular person and see, do they actually seem to pose a threat or not? And if they do, then there may need to be more monitoring by law enforcement and so forth. So I think there are steps that can be taken that might minimize future risks. But again, you call for more policing, more social and mental health workers and so forth to help supplement what the police are doing.
Such an unsettling time in our country. Tung Yin, thanks so much for your insight and your time.
You're welcome. Thanks.